Welcome to episode 46 of the Southern Conservative Podcast. My name is Ty. There was no podcast on Wednesday, so there will be a podcast tomorrow. I don't usually do podcasts on Friday, but with all of the breaking news the last several days, there's so much to talk about that we have to do a podcast tomorrow. On Tuesday, former First Lady Barbara Bush passed away. She was 92 years old, and she was an incredible woman. As a millennial who was just 29 years old, I don't remember Barbara when she was First Lady, but I'm sure many of you listening to this podcast have memories of this woman, and from all accounts, she was an incredible woman, a very loving wife and mother, and she certainly has been surrounded by politics for a long time. Her husband was president, her son was president and governor, another son was governor, and she became a source of inspiration for many, many people. One particular person in California has said some truly awful things about this woman. Now, you can disagree with someone's political views, but you can still be respectful to someone and their family when that person dies. About an hour after the announcement of Barbara Bush's death, Fresno State University English professor Randa Jarrar tweeted the following message. Barbara Bush was a generous and smart and amazing racist who, along with her husband, raised a war criminal. F outta here with your nice words. Now, what's just as appalling is there is a screen grab of the tweet on a Fox News article I posted on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Southern Conservative, and the tweet at that time had 484 likes. If that wasn't enough, about 10 minutes after the first tweet, she tweeted again. Either you are against these pieces of S and their genocidal ways, or you're part of the problem. That's actually how simple this is. I'm happy the witch is dead. Can't wait for the rest of her family to fall to their demise the way 1.5 million Iraqis have. As you can imagine, this has sparked a lot of outrage on Twitter. But that didn't deter this woman. About an hour later, she tweeted again. All the hate I'm getting almost made me forget how happy I am that George W. Bush is probably really sad right now. This is absolutely uncalled for. These comments are vile and disgusting, and yet it's just another glaring example of liberal hypocrisy. The left is always preaching, they're always telling us how we have to be respectful, we must be tolerant of other people, we can't ever say anything offensive, and the left is constantly policing speech. You can see how conservative viewpoints are often blocked on social media sites. Well, Randa Jarrar apparently feels she's exempt from all of this and can just rip this woman, a former First Lady who just died hours earlier, as well as rip her family up and down with no limits. Many are calling for her to be fired. The provost of the university has stated that just because she has tenure does not mean she can't be fired. Now, I have a problem with tenure. If you're an excellent professor and your students are learning, then you should remain a professor. And a school would surely want to keep good professors. But if you're a lousy professor and you have tenure, a school cannot fire you. You have to do something totally egregious or violate the law or campus policy to get fired. And professors feel that just because they have tenure, they have free reign over their classrooms and behavior. We all know college campuses have become centers for liberal indoctrination, and certainly you're going to have professors who offer their liberal viewpoints or interpretations when they teach. But can someone be fired over a personal tweet? No. I know it's vile and sick and disgusting, and I know that many people are outraged and many are calling for this woman to be fired. The university has determined she made this comment as a private citizen, and the school has distanced itself from these comments. Now, if this woman makes a comment, either in the classroom or on Twitter, that violates school policy, or if she flat out can't teach because her ideology prevents her from teaching, then she should be fired. Violating school policy will get someone fired even if they have tenure. But again, if someone has tenure and they're a lousy professor, a school won't get rid of that professor. It's just a reality. And that's why we shouldn't have tenure. It would be interesting to see if this woman has made similar comments in the classroom. Presenting material in a classroom in a biased way is one thing. I know I had plenty of professors who did just that. And if you're a conservative student, you have to see your way through the BS. But if there is a professor using their platform as a professor in the classroom to say these sorts of things using that sort of language, to me, that should be a fireable offense. But again, with that tenure thing, it's a very difficult thing to do. There were some new developments last night in the congressional investigation into the DOJ and FBI as it relates to the Steele dossier and FISA abuse, as well as the scandal involving uranium and Russia. Florida Congressman Ron DeSantis and 10 other Republican congressmen have sent criminal referrals to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, FBI Director Christopher Wray, and Utah's U.S. Attorney John Huber. Huber, you'll remember, was appointed by Jeff Sessions to assist the DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz with his investigations involving FISA abuse and the Hillary email investigation. The criminal referrals were made against James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton, Peter Strzok, and Lisa Page. DeSantis notes that he and others are aware of, quote, dissimilar degrees of zealousness that has marked the investigations into former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the presidential campaign of Donald Trump. Because we believe that those in positions of high authority should be treated the same as every other American, we want to be sure that the potential violations of law outlined below are vetted appropriately. So basically, the congressman is pointing out how no one is above the law, and how the FBI handled the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the Donald Trump investigation into alleged Russian collusion very differently. The referral criticizes the unverified and false information that was presented to the FISA court to secure warrants against Carter Page. It's policy of the FBI that such information needs to be accurate and verified. Plus, top officials at the DOJ and FBI signed off on these FISA applications, swearing to it that the information contained in the applications was truthful and accurate. The congressman referred to various criminal statutes believed to have been violated as it relates to these matters. The congressman also pointed to memos leaked by James Comey. Some of these memos contain classified information. We know that the memos were leaked to a Columbia law professor, Daniel Richman. In fact, when the Senate Judiciary Committee reviewed these memos, Chuck Grassley very wisely put 2 and 2 together. There are 7 memos written by Comey, 4 of which were determined to contain classified information. 4 memos were released. Just do the math. At least 1 absolutely had to contain classified information. So not only did James Comey leak classified information, but he is still in possession of these memos, which are government property. Comey said the memos are not government property, just his private thoughts. But either way, his private thoughts contained classified information, and so the criminal statutes violated have been referred. Criminal statutes violated by Hillary, as it relates to hiding the fact her campaign paid for the Steele dossier and did not disclose that information to the Federal Election Commission, were also referred. We know that Hillary's campaign and the DNC paid Fusion GPS, who in turn hired Steele to write the dossier, and they funneled the money through the law firm Perkins Coie to hide that fact. A referral was made against Loretta Lynch dealing with William Campbell, the FBI informant working to uncover Russian bribery as it relates to uranium. He was working undercover with Russians who were involved in bribery, racketeering, and money laundering, and Campbell wound up using his own money related to uncovering these activities. He filed a lawsuit in federal court to recoup this money and had sent a FOIA request to the DOJ for more information on his case. He was threatened for prosecution under Loretta Lynch for violating a non-disclosure agreement he had made with the FBI. Lisa Page and Peter Strzok were referred for their actions involved in interfering with the Hillary Clinton investigation. In particular, a text message between Page and Strzok indicates Comey's exoneration statement had changed language from president to senior government official. There was a text message also between Page and Strzok that indicated POTUS wanted to know everything they were doing. Obama has said he never communicated with Comey regarding the Hillary investigation, but these text messages reveal otherwise. The bottom line is, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Clinton, and Lynch, and I foresee more names coming soon, are in big trouble, and with the U.S. Attorney Huber notified of all of this, and with an impending Inspector General's report that will come out in May, the House of Cards is coming down very quickly. Hopefully, these people will be dragged before a grand jury and indicted on crimes listed in the criminal referrals. A message needs to be sent loud and clear that these people are not above the law, and you cannot weaponize the DOJ and FBI to satisfy your own ideological desires. I want to remind everyone to please check out my Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/Southern Conservative. That's facebook.com/Southern Conservative. There you will find links to conservative news articles on stories you may not hear about in the mainstream media. Plus, if you follow the news feed, you'll find links to the daily podcasts. Be sure to also subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the notifications bell so you'll be alerted each time a new podcast has been posted. New podcasts are posted daily, Monday through Thursday, and there will be a podcast tomorrow on Friday. I want to finish with my criticism of Neil Gorsuch and his recent vote on the Supreme Court regarding immigration law. I also want to share with you my dissatisfaction in inconsistencies with the court. Neil Gorsuch was the deciding vote in this 5-4 split. The ruling dealt with deporting immigrants, whether legal or illegal, based on certain crimes that have been committed. The ruling in the law was too vague as it relates to deporting illegal immigrants. So now Congress will have to go back and rewrite the law. I'm guessing they're now going to have to list every specific crime for which a person can be deported. Now, Gorsuch argued that people may be unnecessarily deported. It gives too much power to the executive to decide these matters, and when it comes to other criminal law, crimes have to be specific. When it comes to criminal law, you do indeed need specifics as to whether a crime has been committed. You need to see if the actions of a person satisfies the requirements of having committed a specific crime. I want to remind you of the 2012 ruling in which Arizona's law regarding the enforcement of immigration law was struck down. Anthony Kennedy, writing for the majority in that case, said that because one of the enumerated powers of Congress is to establish a uniform rule on naturalization, it's solely the job of the federal government to govern immigration. So the states can't do anything. The ruling also reinforced the idea that federal law preempts state law. Clarence Thomas argued there's no preemption here because the Arizona law mirrored the federal law. Antonin Scalia took it further to say that Arizona, as a sovereign state, meant it could exclude illegal immigrants from its state because the power of exclusion is wholly part of your state's sovereignty. Now, when it comes to preemption, meaning federal law trumps state law, it's exactly that. Federal laws passed by Congress trump state law. Now, in many areas of the law, including drugs, I would know this since I'm a pharmacist, there's a lot of overlap in the law. Many times state law is stricter than federal law. For example, propofol is a scheduled drug in some states, but the federal government does not declare it to be a scheduled drug. Thus, rules governing controlled substances apply to propofol in those states where it's a controlled substance. Propofol, by the way, is a general anesthetic, and it's the drug that killed Michael Jackson. But Kennedy did something else in the Arizona case. He greatly expanded the power of the executive branch, that is, the president, in making immigration decisions. He noted how various government agencies were involved in immigration, and they need to choose how to best enforce immigration laws. In other words, the executive could decide who to deport and who not to deport under the president's authority of prosecutorial discretion because of the limited resources of the federal government. So even though the Constitution specifically states that Congress has the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization, in other words, immigration law, the president has the power to exercise his judgment as to how to carry out those laws, meaning he can decide to not enforce some immigration laws. So even though Congress has the power to decide immigration laws, and Arizona wanted their law enforcement to be able to enforce federal law because the federal government wasn't doing so, and therefore Arizona granted their law enforcement authority by way of a state law that mirrored the federal law. Obama's discretion preempted Arizona's law. The bottom line is the authority given to the president as it relates to immigration law was vastly expanded, and the power of the states to have some sort of recourse when the federal government doesn't do its job was wiped out. Again, Kennedy wrote that the power given to Congress means it's solely the power of the federal government to fool around with immigration laws. Applying this ruling to sanctuary states and cities means those jurisdictions are in violation of federal law, and the court should then be consistent and uphold the lawsuit the Trump administration has placed on California for being a sanctuary state and not enforcing and cooperating with federal immigration law and law enforcers. So the executive branch, therefore, has discretion in applying federal immigration law. Well, Neil Gorsuch and the majority of the court, which included the liberal justices Ginsburg, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, said the law was too vague. And just like if criminal law is too vague, it's unconstitutional. But immigration law has never been treated like criminal law, and the 2012 ruling involving Arizona supports that. And when you look at the law, the Congress has created all the different departments and agencies and given them authority to not only enforce laws, but to write regulations in which there are underlying statutes supporting those regulations. And oftentimes, the law is written merely as a framework for the executive branch to determine how the law will be carried out. The vagueness leaves it up to the executive. So the vagueness in the law as it relates to deportations should be left up to the president. But no. Now Congress will have to rewrite the law, and good luck on that happening. You'll never be able to strengthen immigration laws when the left and the Democrats want to grant amnesty and make all of the illegal immigrants lawful voters. So if you think Gorsuch was correct in his ruling by saying the vagueness in the law gives the executive too much power, what the hell does that say about the vagueness of other laws? This isn't the only law ever passed by Congress where the language is vague. And now, when you actually have a president that wants to enforce immigration laws, his hands are now tied in some respects. It's a complete disservice to the citizens of this country. When it comes to illegal immigrants, the fact that their presence in this country is in violation of the law, every illegal immigrant in theory should be deported. But because that's impossible to do, the president has to decide how to go about deporting illegal immigrants. And Trump is focused on those who have committed crimes. Well, because not every crime has been listed in the statutes in the law, and the law is too vague, you're going to have illegal immigrants who have committed crimes, but it's not listed in the statute, and so they can't be deported, even though they're in this country illegally and have committed a crime. It's an absolute disgrace. And that's it for today, folks. I'll be back on Friday with another podcast. Have a great day, everyone.